Hello, and welcome to my recap of books 1 to 3 in the Plated Prisoner series. Just so you're aware, this video is intended for those who only want a brief overview of the series before Glow is released on May 19th. So if you could like, comment, and/or subscribe, it would mean the absolute world to me. But without further ado, here's the video. To start off, we are introduced to the main character Orin, who is also known as King Midas's favorite saddle. And as a quick note, saddles are their equivalent to a lady of the night. There are regular saddles who service the common people, as well as the royal saddles who are reserved strictly for the royals who employ them. Due to Orin's status as the favorite and her skin being gilded, she is mainly used for more decorative purposes. Midas keeps her in a gilded cage, mainly using her as a display of his power. It is important to remember that at this point we only know Midas as the Golden King or the Gold Touched. His title as the Golden King was given due to his ability to control and create gold with a single touch. It was actually how he came into power, as the former princess, Melina Collier, was born without power, and subsequently required a husband who was magically adept to keep her throne. And as a brief history of the world, there were previously 7 kingdoms, but now there are only 6. It was due to a falling out of the Fae with the humans, which is actually why all the monarchs are required to have magical abilities, so that if the Fae ever return, the monarchs would be strong enough to fight them off. So to start with the first book, it opens with Orin in her cage, and how she isn't allowed to go anywhere unless she's in the confines of her cage, which spans across several rooms in Hypixel Castle, or is in the presence of the king. Although despite her confinement, Orin does not seem particularly desperate to free herself, and we learn that she prefers the cage to the horrors of the outside world. Midas commands Orin's presence in an early meeting with King Folk, and we learn of the intended war against King Ravager. Midas, despite Orin's many protests, bargains away Orin for a night in exchange for King Folk's army assisting in the war. But Midas ultimately betrays him when he sends his army to the 5th kingdom, which is the kingdom Folk rules over, while Folk sends his army to the 4th kingdom alone. Folk's army is decimated by King Ravengers, and once the messenger confirms this, Midas kills King Folk while stating his intentions to take control of his kingdom. Shortly after, Midas heads to the now relatively vacant 5th kingdom under the guise of helping their people through losing their king and guiding the now orphaned prince. After making sure it was safe, Midas sends for Orin and the other royal saddles, though not long into the journey they are ambushed and taken prisoner by the Red Raids, a group of snow pirates. The leader of the Red Raids, Captain Fane, sends out multiple messages to inform potential buyers, but shortly after he receives a note informing him of an incoming guest. That guest turns out to be Commander Rip of the 4th Kingdom, and it turns out that Rip had intercepted each of the messages Captain Fane had sent out. He informs Fane that he will be buying all the prisoners, including Orin. And much to her shock, she can see that Commander Rip is Fae, despite there supposedly being none left in any of the kingdoms. And the book ends with Midas's saddles taken into Commander Rip's control. Glint begins with how Guild ended, with Orin and the others entering the 4th Kingdom's army encampment. We learn that Orin has to share a tent with Commander Rip because he can't trust her due to her strong loyalty to the Golden King. In this book, we also get chapters from Queen Melina's point of view, where we get to see her make a play for the throne while Midas is still in 5th Kingdom. Melina also reveals that she was the one who tipped off the Red Raids to Orin's location, and that it wasn't just a coincidence that the snow pirates found them. As Orin spends quite a bit of time with the members of 4th Kingdom, she begins to recognize that Midas isn't all that she had hoped, and even sees that she was trapped with him. Though even recognizing that, she knows that she'll go back to him. Back in Melina's point of view, we see her meet with Sir Prune, a merchant that claims to be able to grant the queen her greatest desire, although she was only given a map that appears to be incorrect. It included the 7th kingdom, despite there supposedly being nothing there. Orin, fully by her own choice, leaves the 4th kingdom encampment to return to Midas, but she does realize then that she will not allow it to return to how it was before. A point she makes very clear to Midas, though Midas does not seem to respect her newly found anger and clarity at her situation. Midas meets with King Ravager, who requests Deadwall in exchange for not retaliating for the 5th Kingdom's earlier attack. Deadwall is a supposedly empty strip of land on 4th border with 5th, and at the end of the book we learn that Commander Rip is actually King Ravager. and that he possesses the ability to transform between the two forms. The third book, Gleam, starts off with Rip, or King Slade Ravenger, learning of Midas's lack of magic, and that he has actually been pawning off Orin's powers as his own. Risa, one of Midas's saddles, is planning on escaping with Orin's help, though no concrete plan has been made yet. Due to Orin being more assertive and maintaining a semblance of freedom and refusing to return to a cage, Midas resorts to threatening to hurt Digby, Orin's old guard, if she doesn't do as he wishes. Back in Sixth Kingdom, Melina tries to continue and rally her supporters, but Midas sends someone in to incite general unrest, which causes the people to riot. The rioters end up forcing their way into Hypixel Castle. Many of the guards abandon their post after Melina orders them to kill the rioters. Prune, the queen, Geo, who's the queen's saddle, and some guards flee the castle. Orin states to Slade that she is choosing herself, and not Midas, also that he would need to prove himself to her due to her general distrust of kings. He doesn't know yet of Orin's plans to escape. Midas reveals to Slade that he sent scouts to Deadwall, and that he will remove them if Commander Rip is sent away. Midas is jealous due to Slade having been in Rip's form for many of the times Orin and him were seen interacting together. In Sixth, we learn that Midas had planned for the riot and had put some of his army in place to stop it after claiming that the queen was dead, that she had been assassinated by rioters. All the members of court fled, even Melina's supporters, so she is left with no way to retaliate. In Fifth, Orin and Slade sleep together, and Orin informs him of everything, including how Midas has Digby and of her plans to escape. He agrees to help locate and rescue Digby. Queen Kalia of Third Kingdom informs Orin of her engagement to Midas, something that can now take place due to the supposed death of Queen Melina. Midas drugs Orin with dew, a popular drug in Fifth Kingdom, after she helps him decorate the ballroom. And due to the general lack of obedience that he expects from her, he brings her to see Digby right before cutting off her ribbons, stating that she lost the privilege. Midas reveals to Orin that he used to be known as Barden East, a name which Orin knew from when she was younger. Barden East was a crime lord and flesh trader that tried to buy her before she'd left the area. The only reason she fled was to escape the flesh trader she was currently indebted to, and to get away from the other slaver trying to buy her. But then she was manipulated into giving herself over to one of the very men she was running away from. Back at the ball, Midas poisons the Fifth Kingdom prince and tries to blame the death on Slade, but Orin stands up to him and states that Midas is the guilty one, that she will be leaving with Slade and will not be staying. This only leads Midas to threaten her, and subsequently for Orin to call all the gold in the room to her, and use it to attack everyone in the room. The gold only seems to avoid Slade and the other Fourth Kingdom members. With the gold, Orin restrains Midas just before gilding him. The book ends with Orin unable to let go of her power, so Slade uses his power on her to knock her out. I've included some info cards here, the first one being a list of all the major characters in the series so far, and the second is a list of all the kingdoms in Oria, and some of the lore behind the Seventh Kingdom. So feel free to screenshot them and use them as a reference. And now for some predictions. I think Glow will focus on Orin figuring out her position in Fourth Kingdom, but there is still the question of the power vacuum taking place in the kingdoms, with both Sixth and Fifth Kingdom currently without rulers. There's also the fact that Queen Kalia escaped with the knowledge that Orin was the one who created the gold and not Midas. So it is likely that she, and possibly other rulers, will attempt to try and take control of Orin and the vacant thrones. With the ending of Gleam, we are wondering what will happen to the saddles, including Miss, considering that she's pregnant with Midas's child. There's also the question of Risa and Polly. Orin saw them leave before everything happened, but we don't know if they were successful or not. The fourth novel in the series is set to be released on May 19th of this year, and I'll be announcing any developments on my Twitter if you want to follow me there. So if you made it to the end of the video, firstly I want to say thank you for listening, and secondly I hope that you have a gloriously bookish inspired day ahead of you. Goodbye for now.